There is something powerful about attraction that most people misunderstand. We often imagine that when a man is deeply attracted to a woman, he will simply say it. He will walk up, confess his feelings, make everything obvious, and remove every question from her mind. But real human behavior is rarely that simple. Attraction can be expressed through words, but it can also appear through attention, nervousness, consistency, curiosity, emotional openness, and the subtle ways someone begins making room for another person in their life. And sometimes the most important thing you can learn is not how to decode every glance or every text message, but how to recognize the difference between genuine attraction and behavior that only creates confusion. Because here is what I want you to understand from the beginning. You do not have to become a detective to determine whether someone values you. You do not have to analyze every message, replay every conversation, study every change in his tone, or spend sleepless nights wondering what one particular look meant. Attraction can be complicated, but respect should not be. Interest can develop slowly, but consistency should eventually become visible. Chemistry can be mysterious, but emotional safety should not feel like a mystery. There are 5 common patterns that may appear when a man is deeply attracted to a woman, but these are not universal rules. Every person is different. Personality, culture, attachment style, confidence, life experience, and emotional maturity can influence how attraction is expressed. A shy man may behave very differently from an outgoing man. An emotionally guarded man may take longer to reveal interest than someone who is naturally expressive. And someone with unhealthy relationship patterns may imitate attraction while actually seeking attention, validation, control, or emotional supply. That distinction matters enormously because there are women who have been taught to interpret emotional chaos as passion. They have been taught that jealousy means love, possessiveness means commitment, inconsistency means mystery, emotional distance means depth, and intense chemistry means destiny. But sometimes what feels intoxicating is simply uncertainty. Sometimes what feels like a powerful connection is actually your nervous system responding to unpredictability. Sometimes you are not deeply attracted to the person at all. You are deeply invested in finally receiving the validation you have been waiting for. And this is especially important when narcissistic behavior enters the picture. A person with strong narcissistic traits may understand that attention creates emotional attachment. They may use charm, intense interest, mirroring, excessive compliments, or rapid emotional intimacy to make someone feel uniquely chosen. This can look remarkably similar to genuine attraction in the beginning. That is why your goal should never be to memorize a list of signs and assume that every sign proves love. Your goal is to observe patterns over time. A healthy man who is deeply attracted to you may want to impress you, but he will also want to know you. He may want your attention, but he will also care about your experience. He may feel nervous around you, but he will not need to manipulate you into proving that you care. He may become more attentive, but he will not demand access to every part of your life. He may desire closeness, but he can tolerate your boundaries. That is where attraction becomes meaningful. The first thing a man may do when he is deeply attracted to a woman is become unusually attentive to her. Not merely attentive to her appearance, but attentive to her as a person. He starts noticing things. He remembers what she told him 3 weeks ago. He remembers the name of the project she was worried about. He remembers that she likes a particular kind of coffee. He notices when her energy changes. He notices when she seems tired. He remembers a story she told him because he was actually listening rather than simply waiting for his turn to speak. And there is a psychological reason this can happen. When someone becomes emotionally salient to us, our attention naturally becomes more focused on them. We begin collecting information about them because our brain has identified the relationship as meaningful. We become curious. We want to understand. We notice details that we might overlook in ordinary interactions. Think about the difference between someone who looks at you and someone who sees you. Someone can stare at you for hours and know almost nothing about you. Someone else can spend 20 minutes talking with you and remember something you casually mentioned because they were genuinely interested. The second kind of attention can be much more meaningful. A man who is deeply attracted to you may begin asking questions that go beyond superficial conversation. He may ask what you want from life. He may ask what makes you happy. He may want to know about your childhood, your goals, your values, your interests, your frustrations, or what you hope your future looks like. But again, pay attention to the quality of the curiosity. Healthy curiosity does not feel like interrogation. Healthy curiosity feels like interest. There is a difference. If someone wants to know everything about you because he wants to understand you, that can be a beautiful sign of attraction. But if someone wants to know everything about you so that he can later use your vulnerabilities against you, that is something completely different. This is one of the reasons narcissistic relationships can become so psychologically confusing. A person with narcissistic traits may initially appear extraordinarily interested in you. They may ask deep questions. They may remember details. They may seem fascinated by your personality. They may make you feel as though you are the most interesting person they have ever encountered. And perhaps they are attracted to you. But attraction alone does not equal emotional safety. Someone can be strongly attracted to you and still be emotionally unhealthy. Someone can desire you and still disrespect you. Someone can pursue you and still manipulate you. Someone can compliment you and still devalue you later. This is why we must stop treating attraction as proof of character. Attraction tells you that someone wants something. Character tells you what they will do with that desire. That distinction can change your entire understanding of relationships. The second thing a man may do when he is deeply attracted to a woman is look for opportunities to be around her. He may find reasons to start conversations. He may invite her somewhere. He may ask for her opinion. He may remember something she enjoys and suggest doing it together. He may naturally create opportunities for connection. Sometimes the behavior is obvious. Sometimes it is incredibly subtle. Maybe he knows you usually take your coffee break at a certain time, and he happens to show up around then. Maybe he sends you something that reminds him of a conversation you had. Maybe he finds an excuse to ask you a question he could easily have answered himself. Maybe he begins incorporating you into his plans. Again, this doesn't prove attraction by itself. People can seek proximity for friendship, professional reasons, social reasons, or simple companionship. The important question is whether there is a broader pattern. Does he consistently make an effort? Does he show genuine interest? Does he respect your availability? Does he accept a no? Does he make plans and follow through? Does he treat you with consideration even when he is not trying to impress you? Because attraction is not simply about how someone behaves when they are trying to win you. It is also about how they behave once they believe they have your attention. That is where many people discover the truth. Someone can pursue you intensely for weeks and then become cold the moment they feel secure. Someone can shower you with attention until you reciprocate and then suddenly withdraw. Someone can make enormous promises and then become inconsistent once the initial excitement fades. This can happen in unhealthy relationship dynamics, including relationships involving narcissistic traits. The cycle can be incredibly confusing because the early intensity becomes the emotional reference point. You remember how attentive they were. You remember how they looked at you. You remember the late night conversations. You remember the compliments. You remember feeling chosen. And when the behavior changes, you may start trying to earn the original version of them back. You think, what did I do? You think, maybe I became too available. You think, maybe I should pull away. You think, maybe if I become more mysterious, he will chase me again. And suddenly, instead of asking whether the relationship is healthy, you are trying to solve a psychological puzzle. That is the moment to stop. You should not have to perform emotional gymnastics to maintain someone's respect. You should not have to manipulate someone into treating you well. You should not have to become emotionally unavailable to make someone appreciate you. And you should never have to abandon your boundaries simply because someone is attracted to you. The third thing a man may do when he is deeply attracted to a woman is become more intentional about how he presents himself around her. He may care more about his appearance. He may become more conscious of his words. He may want to show his strengths. He may become slightly nervous. He may become more playful. He may attempt to make her laugh. This is normal human behavior. When we care about someone's opinion, their perception of us becomes psychologically significant. You might see a confident man become slightly awkward around someone he genuinely likes. You might see someone who normally speaks effortlessly suddenly think carefully about what he is going to say. You might notice him becoming more attentive to his appearance before seeing you. That does not mean every nervous man is deeply attracted to you, but it can be one piece of a larger pattern. And there is something beautiful about this, because genuine attraction can make people feel vulnerable. When someone's opinion matters, rejection becomes possible. When rejection becomes possible, the ego becomes involved. Even confident people can experience uncertainty. A man may wonder, does she like me? He may wonder, am I reading this correctly? He may wonder, should I make a move? He may hesitate because he does not want to cross a boundary, and that last part matters. A healthy man does not interpret attraction as entitlement. He can desire you without believing he owns you. He can want your attention without demanding it. He can hope you reciprocate without punishing you if you do not. That is emotional maturity. And this is where we have to separate attraction from narcissistic behavior. A person with narcissistic traits may also care deeply about how they appear, but their motivation may be less about authentic connection and more about maintaining an image. They may need to be admired. They may become preoccupied with being seen as desirable, impressive, successful, powerful, or irresistible. The difference may not be visible during the first few interactions. You discover it through time. Does this person care about your inner world or primarily about your reaction to them? Does he want to know you or does he want to be admired by you? Does he listen when you disagree? Does he become defensive when you have needs? Does he respect your individuality? Does he become angry when you say no? Does he punish you emotionally when you do not give him the validation he expects? Those questions are more important than whether he blushes when you walk into the room, because attraction is not the final destination. Character is. The fourth thing a deeply attracted man may do is gradually become emotionally vulnerable. This is one of the most meaningful signs because emotional vulnerability involves risk. When someone shares something personal, they are allowing you access to a part of themselves that could potentially be judged, rejected, misunderstood, or dismissed. A man may tell you about something that hurt him. He may talk about a dream he has never pursued. He may admit a fear. He may tell you about an important failure. He may share something about his family. He may tell you about a time he felt lost. And if he does this gradually and appropriately, it can be a sign that emotional trust is developing. But vulnerability is not the same thing as emotional dumping. There is a difference between healthy openness and immediately unloading every unresolved wound onto another person. Healthy vulnerability has reciprocity. It develops with trust. It respects the other person's capacity. It does not turn the woman into a therapist, rescuer, parent, or emotional caretaker. This distinction is particularly important for women who have developed strong empathy after difficult relationships. If you have spent years being the person who understands everyone, forgives everyone, explains everyone's behavior, and tries to heal everyone's wounds, you may mistake someone's pain for intimacy. You may think, he told me things he has never told anyone else. Therefore, I must be special. Maybe you are. But emotional disclosure alone does not prove emotional maturity. Someone can tell you their deepest wounds and still behave destructively. Someone can cry in front of you and still manipulate you. Someone can tell you they have been hurt and still hurt you. Someone can have trauma and still be responsible for how they treat others. Compassion does not require self-abandonment. You can understand someone's pain without volunteering to become the person who absorbs the consequences of their unhealed behavior. This is one of the most important lessons in emotional healing. You are allowed to have empathy without becoming someone's emotional hostage. You are allowed to understand someone without excusing them. You are allowed to care about their history without accepting mistreatment. And if you have ever been involved with someone who used vulnerability as a way to accelerate intimacy, remember this. Intimacy should be built through consistency, not manufactured through emotional intensity. The fifth thing a deeply attracted man may do is pay attention to your responses. When someone genuinely cares about your perception, your reactions matter to them. He may notice when you are uncomfortable. He may notice when you are excited. He may remember what you like. He may ask whether you enjoyed something. He may adjust his behavior based on your feedback. And that willingness to adjust is powerful because healthy attraction creates curiosity about the other person's experience. Unhealthy attraction can become centered on possession. Healthy attraction says, I want to know you. Unhealthy obsession may say, I want access to you. Healthy attraction says, I hope you choose me. Entitlement says, you owe me your attention. Healthy attraction can tolerate uncertainty. Manipulation tries to eliminate uncertainty through pressure. Healthy attraction respects boundaries. Control attempts to destroy them. And this is why the way a man responds when you say no may tell you more than the way he behaves when you say yes. Watch what happens when you have your own plans. Watch what happens when you disagree. Watch what happens when you need space. Watch what happens when you do not immediately respond. Watch what happens when you tell him something makes you uncomfortable. A healthy person may feel disappointed, but they can respect your autonomy. A controlling person may punish you. They may become cold. They may guilt trip you. They may accuse you of not caring. They may attempt to make you jealous. They may withdraw affection to force compliance. And if you recognize that pattern, please do not call it passion. Call it what it is, a boundary problem. This is where emotional intelligence becomes more important than romantic excitement. Because sometimes the person who gives you the strongest butterflies is not the person who gives you the safest relationship. Sometimes the person who makes you obsess is not the person who understands you. Sometimes the person who creates the most uncertainty becomes the person you think about the most. And your mind can mistake repetition for importance. If someone gives you attention and then removes it, your brain may become preoccupied with recovering it. If they alternate warmth and coldness, you may become hyper-focused on their next move. This intermittent reinforcement can make an unhealthy connection feel unusually compelling. You begin waiting for the good version to return. You begin interpreting every small gesture. You begin thinking, maybe this text means he is changing. Maybe. But maybe it simply means he sent a text. And that is why patterns matter more than moments. One romantic message does not establish emotional safety. One apology does not establish accountability. One vulnerable conversation does not establish maturity. One intense night does not establish compatibility. One beautiful beginning does not guarantee a healthy future. Look at the pattern. What happens repeatedly? What happens when there is conflict? What happens when you have needs? What happens when he is disappointed? What happens when you succeed? What happens when you receive attention from someone else? What happens when you become more independent? What happens when you stop chasing? Those moments reveal character. And if you have ever walked away from a relationship wondering why you became someone you did not recognize, this is your invitation to come back to yourself. Maybe you became anxious. Maybe you started checking your phone constantly. Maybe you stopped trusting your instincts. Maybe you began changing your appearance because you thought it would make someone stay. Maybe you became quieter. Maybe you stopped expressing needs because every need seemed to become an argument. Maybe you started thinking that love meant proving yourself. But love should not require the disappearance of your identity. You should not have to become smaller to be loved. You should not have to become easier to control. You should not have to silence your boundaries. You should not have to compete with other women for someone's attention. You should not have to decode a person who refuses to communicate clearly. And if someone is deeply attracted to you but cannot treat you with respect, then his attraction is not enough. This is where the conversation about narcissism becomes especially important. Narcissistic behavior exists on a spectrum, and not every selfish, arrogant, emotionally immature, or difficult person has narcissistic personality disorder. Diagnosis requires professional assessment. So be careful about labeling people based on a few behaviors. But certain narcissistic traits can create relationship patterns that are deeply destabilizing. A person with strong narcissistic traits may seek admiration, struggle with criticism, feel entitled to special treatment, have difficulty taking responsibility, or respond poorly when their self-image is threatened. Some may use manipulation, idealization, devaluation, blame shifting, or withdrawal of attention to regulate their sense of power and importance. And when you are caught inside that cycle, you may spend enormous amounts of energy trying to understand them. You may ask, does he love me? But perhaps the more important question is, do I feel respected here? You may ask, why does he keep coming back? But perhaps the better question is, what happens every time he comes back? You may ask, why does he become jealous? But perhaps the better question is, what does he do with that jealousy? You may ask, why does he miss me? But perhaps the better question is, does missing me lead him to take responsibility? Or does it simply lead him to seek access again? These questions move you from obsession to clarity. And clarity is powerful. Because narcissistic dynamics often create an environment where you become focused on the other person's internal world while abandoning your own. You become an expert in their moods. You know when they are irritated. You know when they are withdrawing. You know when they are about to explode. You know when to speak. You know when to stay silent. You know how to phrase things so they do not become defensive. You know what topics will trigger them. You know how to apologize even when you are not wrong. And slowly, your life becomes organized around preventing someone else's emotional reaction. That is not intimacy. That is hypervigilance. Healing begins when you stop asking, how do I keep this person happy? And start asking, what do I need to feel emotionally safe? That shift may feel selfish at first. It is not selfish. It is self-respect. And if you are someone who has spent years putting everyone else's needs first, self-respect may initially feel unfamiliar. You may feel guilty for saying no. You may feel uncomfortable when you do not explain yourself. You may feel anxious when someone is disappointed with you. You may think you need permission to leave a situation that hurts you. You do not. You are allowed to walk away from what repeatedly harms you. You are allowed to stop arguing with someone who has demonstrated that they are not interested in understanding you. You are allowed to stop proving your innocence. You are allowed to stop chasing closure from someone who keeps reopening the wound. And this brings us to no contact. No contact is often discussed as though it is a strategy designed to make another person miss you. That can become another form of emotional attachment. If you go no contact while secretly monitoring whether the narcissistic person misses you, you may still be emotionally connected. You are physically silent, but psychologically waiting. You check whether they viewed your story. You wonder whether they noticed your absence. You imagine them regretting what they did. You wonder whether they will reach out. You interpret every unknown number as possibly being them. That is not freedom yet. No contact becomes more powerful when it stops being about what the other person feels and becomes about what you need to heal. You are not disappearing, so they will chase you. You are stepping away because your peace matters. You are not withholding attention to punish them. You are protecting your attention because it is valuable. You are not trying to make them regret losing you. You are learning to stop regretting losing yourself. That is the difference. And if they return, your job is not to determine whether they still desire you. Your job is to determine whether the relationship is healthy enough to deserve access to you. Someone returning is not automatically evidence of change. Someone saying, "I miss you," is not automatically accountability. Someone becoming emotional is not automatically transformation. Look for sustained behavioral change. Look for responsibility. Look for respect. Look for consistency. Look for willingness to repair harm. Look for the ability to tolerate your boundaries without retaliation, because words can create hope. Bartas create evidence, and you deserve evidence. You deserve a relationship where you do not have to interpret basic respect as a special favor. You deserve someone who can be attracted to you without attempting to control you. You deserve someone who can desire closeness without erasing your independence. You deserve someone who can handle your strength. You deserve someone who does not become threatened when you grow. You deserve someone who celebrates your success rather than competing with it. And perhaps most importantly, you deserve someone whose love does not require you to betray yourself. If you have been hurt by narcissistic behavior, there may come a point where your deepest healing does not come from understanding the narcissist better. It comes from understanding yourself better. Why did you stay? Not so you can blame yourself, not so you can shame yourself, but so you can understand the needs, fears, hopes, and patterns that made the relationship difficult to leave. Maybe you were hoping they would become the person they were at the beginning. Maybe you believed your love could heal them. Maybe you had been taught that commitment means enduring almost anything. Maybe you confused compassion with responsibility. Maybe you were afraid of being alone. Maybe the relationship slowly changed, so there was no single moment when you realized how unhealthy it had become. These things happen. You do not need to punish the version of yourself who survived with the tools she had at the time. You need to protect the version of yourself who is learning new tools now. That is healing. Healing is not waking up one morning and feeling nothing. Healing may mean remembering without returning. Healing may mean missing someone without contacting them. Healing may mean feeling lonely without interpreting loneliness as a sign that you made the wrong decision. Healing may mean finally understanding that peace can initially feel boring when your nervous system has become accustomed to emotional chaos. That is why a healthy relationship may feel strange after a chaotic one. You may initially think, why isn't there more intensity? But perhaps there is less intensity because there is less uncertainty. You may think, why doesn't he text me constantly? Maybe because he trusts that the relationship does not require constant reassurance. You may think, why doesn't he get jealous? Maybe because he respects your autonomy. You may think, why isn't there this incredible emotional roller coaster? Because healthy love does not need a roller coaster to prove that it is real. Sometimes peace is not a lack of passion. Sometimes peace is what passion feels like when it is no longer mixed with fear. And this is a message I want every woman listening to understand. Do not judge a man's attraction only by how intensely he wants you. Judge the quality of the relationship by how safely he treats you. Anyone can want access. Not everyone knows how to build intimacy. Anyone can flatter you. Not everyone can honor you. Anyone can pursue you. Not everyone can remain consistent. Anyone can become jealous. Not everyone can communicate. Anyone can make promises. Not everyone can keep them. And you do not need to settle for the first person who makes you feel desired. You need to learn to value the person who makes you feel respected. There is a difference between being wanted and being cherished. Being wanted can feel intoxicating. Being cherished feels secure. Being wanted may make you feel attractive. Being cherished allows you to feel human. You can have bad days. You can disagree. You can change your mind. You can say no. You can have ambitions. You can have friendships. You can need space. You can be imperfect. And you can still be loved. That is what emotional safety looks like. So, if you are currently wondering whether a man is deeply attracted to you, pay attention to the patterns. Does he consistently make an effort to know you? Does he seek opportunities for meaningful connection? Does he become more intentional around you? Does he gradually allow emotional vulnerability? Does he care about your responses and respect your boundaries? Those behaviors can suggest genuine interest. But do not stop there. Ask the deeper questions. Is he emotionally available? Is he consistent? Does he take responsibility? Can he communicate? Does he respect your autonomy? Does he handle disappointment maturely? Does he support your growth? Does he make you feel safe enough to be yourself? Those questions tell you whether attraction has the potential to become something healthy. And if the answer is no, you do not need to convince yourself that the attraction is meaningless. You simply need to understand that attraction is not enough. A person can be attracted to you and still be wrong for you. That sentence can save you years. Write it again in your heart. A person can be attracted to you and still be wrong for you. A person can miss you and still be wrong for you. A person can love you in the only way they know how and still be unable to give you the kind of relationship you need. A person can have chemistry with you and still create emotional damage. A person can want you and still not know how to care for you. You do not need to deny the connection. You simply need to stop using the connection as an excuse to tolerate what hurts you. This is where self-empowerment begins. You stop asking, how can I make him choose me? You start asking, does this relationship deserve me? You stop asking, how can I make him miss me? You start asking, what do I miss about myself when I am with him? You stop asking, what can I do to make him change? You start asking, what changes do I need to make in how I protect myself? You stop asking, why isn't my love enough? You start asking, why am I measuring my worth by someone's capacity to love? That is a completely different life, because your worth was never determined by someone else's emotional limitations. If someone cannot appreciate you, that does not make you less valuable. If someone rejects you, that does not make you undesirable. If someone devalues you, that does not define your value. If someone manipulates you, that does not mean you were foolish for caring. You were human, you wanted connection, you hoped, you trusted, and now you are learning. There is no shame in learning. There is no shame in recognizing that something you once called love was also hurting you. There is no shame in changing your standards. There is no shame in deciding that the next chapter of your life will be different. You can become the woman who no longer chases mixed signals. You can become the woman who no longer confuses jealousy with devotion. You can become the woman who no longer interprets inconsistency as mystery. You can become the woman who no longer accepts apologies without changed behavior. You can become the woman who no longer needs to be chosen by someone who cannot choose her with respect. And perhaps the most beautiful transformation is this. You can stop trying to become irresistible to people who are incapable of loving you well. You do not need to become more beautiful. You do not need to become more mysterious. You do not need to become less available. You do not need to play games. You do not need to manipulate. You do not need to disappear. You do not need to make someone jealous. You need to become deeply rooted in yourself. When you are rooted in yourself, attention becomes information rather than validation. Someone's attraction can feel good without becoming your identity. Someone's rejection can hurt without destroying your self-worth. Someone's absence can create sadness without creating desperation. Someone's return can create curiosity without automatically reopening the door. That is emotional freedom. And emotional freedom does not mean you stop caring. It means caring no longer costs you your dignity. You can love without chasing. You can forgive without reconnecting. You can understand without excusing. You can remember without returning. You can feel sadness without surrendering your boundaries. You can wish someone well from a distance. You can let a chapter end without demanding that the person who hurt you understand why it had to end. Sometimes closure is not a conversation. Sometimes closure is a decision. Sometimes closure is the moment you finally believe what someone's repeated behavior has been telling you. And if you are currently in a confusing relationship, slow down. Do not rush to label it. Do not rush to romanticize it. Do not rush to demonize the other person either. Observe, watch, listen, pay attention to patterns. Ask yourself how you feel after interacting with this person. Do you feel peaceful? Do you feel respected? Do you feel emotionally safe? Do you feel like yourself? Or do you feel anxious, confused, depleted, insecure, and constantly responsible for maintaining the connection? Your body may be giving you information that your mind keeps trying to rationalize. And if you recognize patterns of manipulation or abuse, consider seeking support from a qualified mental health professional or trusted support system. You do not have to navigate emotionally harmful relationships alone. You deserve perspective. You deserve support. You deserve safety. And you deserve time. There is no prize for healing quickly. You are not behind because you still think about someone. You are not weak because you still miss them. You are not foolish because you love them. You are not broken because part of you still hopes they will change. Healing often happens gradually. One day you stop checking. Another day you stop explaining. Another day you realize you have gone hours without thinking about them, then weeks, then months. And eventually, something extraordinary happens. You realize that the person who once occupied so much of your mental space has become a small chapter in a much larger story, your story. And you begin filling that story with things that have nothing to do with them. Your goals, your friendships, your creativity, your health, your peace, your dreams, your laughter, your future. You begin remembering that you existed before that relationship. And you begin discovering that you can exist beautifully after it. So yes, there may be 5 things a man does when he is deeply attracted to a woman. He may become more attentive, seek proximity, become more intentional, gradually open emotionally, and pay close attention to her responses. But the deeper lesson is not about decoding men. It is about learning to decode relationships. It is about understanding that attraction without respect is insufficient. Chemistry without compatibility is insufficient. Intensity without consistency is insufficient. Apologies without accountability are insufficient. Words without actions are insufficient. And love without emotional safety may not be the love you need. Do not spend your life asking whether someone is deeply attracted to you. Ask whether their presence makes it easier for you to become more fully yourself. That is the question that matters. The right person does not require you to disappear in order to remain connected. The right person does not need you to become smaller. The right person does not need you to compete for basic attention. The right person does not punish your boundaries. The right person may have flaws, fears, insecurities, and moments of imperfection. Healthy relationships are not perfect relationships, but there is room for repair. There is room for accountability. There is room for growth. And if someone genuinely cares about you, your humanity will not become an inconvenience. Your needs will not automatically become demands. Your boundaries will not automatically become rejection. Your independence will not automatically become betrayal. Your success will not automatically become competition. Your voice will not automatically become disrespect. You will not have to walk on eggshells simply because someone is attracted to you. That is the standard. Not perfection, respect, not constant romance, consistency, not endless intensity, emotional safety. And if you have been through narcissistic abuse, remember that rebuilding your standards is part of rebuilding yourself. You may have become accustomed to crumbs. You may have learned to celebrate the smallest gestures. because they were surrounded by deprivation. You may have been so starved for affection that a simple apology felt enormous. You may have become so accustomed to emotional withdrawal that ordinary communication felt extraordinary. Healing means recalibrating. It means learning that basic kindness is not extraordinary. Consistency is not a luxury. Respect is not a reward. Communication is not a special privilege. You are not asking for too much because you want emotional safety. You are asking for a healthy relationship. And if someone repeatedly tells you that your standards are too high because you expect honesty, respect, consistency, and accountability, perhaps your standards are not too high. Perhaps they are simply higher than what that person is willing to provide. Let them be incompatible. You do not need to negotiate your dignity. You do not need to convince someone to value you. You do not need to chase someone into emotional maturity. And you certainly do not need to turn yourself into a psychological project just to become worthy of someone's affection. You are already worthy. The work now is not becoming worthy. The work is becoming willing to act like you know you are. That means leaving when necessary, speaking when necessary, saying no when necessary, walking away when necessary, and sometimes staying and repairing when there is mutual accountability. Self-respect does not always mean leaving. It means choosing based on reality rather than fantasy. If someone makes mistakes and takes responsibility, there may be room for repair. If someone hurts you and genuinely works to change, you can evaluate that. But if someone repeatedly harms you, denies it, blames you, manipulates you, and expects you to remain available, you do not owe endless chances. Your heart is not a rehabilitation center. Your love is not a treatment plan. Your empathy is not an obligation. And your future should not be sacrificed to prove that you are capable of loving someone through anything. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is stop participating in a cycle that keeps breaking you. That is not revenge. That is recovery. That is not cruelty. That is a boundary. That is not bitterness. That is discernment. And when you finally reach that place, something inside you changes. You stop being impressed by intensity. You become impressed by integrity. You stop chasing potential. You evaluate patterns. You stop asking who wants you. You ask who can responsibly love you. You stop measuring your value by attention. You measure relationships by respect. And you become peaceful, not because everyone finally treats you perfectly, but because you finally understand that their behavior does not determine your worth. That is freedom. So, if you are listening to this today and there is someone on your mind, take a deep breath. You do not need to figure everything out tonight. You do not need to know exactly what he feels. You do not need to predict what he will do next. You do not need to decode every signal. Come back to yourself. Ask yourself what you feel. Ask yourself what you need. Ask yourself what you have been tolerating. Ask yourself what you have been calling love. Ask yourself whether your life is expanding or shrinking around this relationship. And then listen, not to the fantasy, not to the fear, not to the hope that someone will become different. Listen to the pattern, because the truth is often quieter than the fantasy, but it is also more reliable. A person who genuinely wants to be in your life will not necessarily behave perfectly, but over time, their actions can communicate consideration. They can communicate respect. They can communicate effort. They can communicate a willingness to build something rather than simply consume your attention. And that is what you should look for, not perfection, not obsession, not possession, not emotional fireworks. Respect, consistency, safety, and peace. The woman you are becoming does not need to chase love. She needs to recognize it. She does not need to convince someone to choose her. She needs to choose herself. She does not need to become unforgettable to someone who hurt her. She needs to become unforgettable to herself. Remember who you were before you started questioning your worth. Remember the woman who had dreams before someone else's behavior became the center of her emotional world. Remember your laughter. Remember your curiosity. Remember your confidence. Remember the parts of yourself you silenced just to keep a relationship alive. And bring them back, not for him, for you. Your life is bigger than one person's attraction. Your future is bigger than one person's rejection. Your identity is bigger than one relationship. And your heart deserves a place where it can finally rest. So let attraction be beautiful when it is healthy. Let chemistry be exciting when it is respectful. Let love be powerful when it is mutual. But never confuse being deeply desired with being deeply valued. The two are not always the same. And when you learn that distinction, you become much harder to manipulate. You stop chasing breadcrumbs. You stop romanticizing inconsistency. You stop making excuses for disrespect. You stop waiting for someone to become the person you hoped they would be. And you begin choosing based on who they consistently are, that is not becoming cold, that is becoming clear, that is not losing your capacity to love, that is learning to love without abandoning yourself. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. The goal is not to become a woman whom every man desperately wants. The goal is to become a woman who knows what she wants, knows what she deserves, knows what she will not tolerate, and has the courage to walk away when reality does not match her values. Because when you reach that place, attraction stops being a source of anxiety. It becomes simply one piece of information. You can appreciate someone's interest without becoming dependent on it. You can enjoy someone's attention without needing it to validate you. You can feel chemistry without losing your judgment. You can fall in love without falling out of love with yourself. And that is where healthy love begins, not with someone choosing you, but with you choosing yourself first. So go forward with your eyes open. Watch actions. Listen to patterns. Protect your boundaries. Honor your intuition. Give relationships time to reveal themselves. Do not rush intimacy. Do not confuse intensity with depth. Do not confuse jealousy with commitment. Do not confuse pursuit with character. And never forget that the most attractive relationship is one where you are allowed to be completely human, where you can breathe, where you can speak, where you can disagree, where you can grow, where you can rest, where you can be loved without performing. That is the kind of love worth waiting for. And if someone is deeply attracted to you, wonderful, let them show you not through games, not through manipulation, not through obsession, through consistency, through respect, through curiosity, through emotional presence, through actions that make their words believable. And if they cannot provide that, you do not have to chase harder. You have to step back. You have to observe. You have to protect your peace because your life is too precious to spend trying to convince someone that you are worth loving. You are not a question mark. You are not an audition. You are not a competition. You are a human being deserving of a relationship where attraction is accompanied by respect, where passion is accompanied by responsibility, and where love does not require you to abandon yourself. And when you finally understand that, you will no longer ask, "How do I make him want me?" You will ask something far more powerful. Does the way he loves me allow me to remain myself? If the answer is yes, nurture it. If the answer is no, listen carefully. Your peace may already be telling you what your heart has been afraid to admit. And when you choose peace, you are not giving up on love. You are making room for a healthier version of it. You are making room for relationships where attraction is not a weapon. Vulnerability is not a manipulation tactic. Boundaries are not treated as rejection. And affection is not something you have to earn every morning. You are making room for a love that does not keep you guessing whether you are enough. Because you are enough. And the right relationship will not require you to spend your life proving it.